We are on. We're live. You ready to go now? Okay. Woo! Now we're ready. Can you hear me? But we're not. You can't hear me though. Can you hear me now? All right, so I am going to be talking about this idea of orchestration, but we are going to be shifting from technology to our favorite topic, you. You guys good with that? We've had 2 days of incredible speakers and discussion and all of these things regarding our work. What about our life? How many of you have had to take a time out just to be here and orchestrate some things back home while you've been doing this? Have you been orchestrating things at work while you've been doing this conference? You're making this constant decision making back and forth between life and work and trying to make it all work and investing in you while handling all those things back at home. And so we're going to talk about how we can do that better. We can orchestrate, right, across the board. So, what are some things that you've had to orchestrate just during these last few days? Anybody want to share anything? Because we're going to do a lot of sharing. This is going to be more workshop, right? I love speaking, I love talking, but it can get really boring after a while if this isn't engaging. So we're going to do some engagement here today, because like I said, this is about all of you, and I want to hear from you. Who's got some things that they've had to deal with the last couple days? We've got a green card in the back right.
I've had to tell my wife how to work the sump pump because apparently it started pouring last night. So I had to tell her how to work the pump and where the hose is and all that stuff.
And keep your house from flooding. That's a really big life thing to be able to understand how to work the sump pump and keep your house from being flooded. That's a great one. Thank you. And another one? Yeah, right here.
I don't know if I raised both hands, but getting babysitters for the kiddos.
Yeah, babysitters for the kids, right? We can't be there all the time. Can't. All right, one more. Let's do one more right here.
I conducted an interview during lunchtime.
Oh, wonderful.
Yeah, I didn't reschedule it. I had to take it. So
Yeah, good luck.
Yeah.
Sending all the best of vibes your way. Congratulations. All right, so we've all got these things we're constantly orchestrating and moving through. So we're going to talk a little bit today about life and work and how those time together. How many have heard work-life balance? Yeah, it's bullshit. I mean blunt. I'm probably a little too blunt sometimes. Trying to get this to move forward though. Not sure why it was working just a moment ago. I am a technologist. Just for some reason, it doesn't always want to work for me. Okay. Hi, my name is Trina Celeste, and I'm here to talk about orchestrating life-work harmony. I'm not going to be like that the whole time, I promise. We're going to have a lot of fun today. One of the things I wanted to talk about is my background. I was fortunate enough to be on the panel earlier. I think most everyone was here and kind of heard my background, so I won't draw too much time there. But what I would really call myself is a life transformist. The individuals that I work with through Tech Moms really aren't about the tech jobs. It's about not just these career transitions, it's life transformations that we're creating. It's incredible to see somebody going, I've been out of the workforce for 15 years. I have no idea what LinkedIn is. I don't know how to do my resume. I don't have a community to pull from. I don't have a network. How do I get back in and how do we create these massive transformations that happen not just in their lives, but their kids' lives? We saw a lot of their husbands now transitioning into tech because their wives now got into careers. There are some massive transformations that happen just by focusing on career. And so I'm going to talk a little bit about my life and orchestrating and what happens a little bit as my introduction. But what I want you to be thinking about right now is think about that first time you got your job. Your first job in. How nervous were you? Seeing that first job interview, how nervous were you today? Were you nervous? Maybe not. No, he was confident. He was awesome. He's like, I got this, right? Not everybody has that same form of confidence, right? They need community support, and so that's really what we provide through Tech Moms. And as I was going through these last 5 years, I've had a lot of people say, well, when I speak, are you going to write a book? And I'm like, I want to write a book. That takes a lot of time. It's a lot of effort. But I kept being asked to do that, and I started to step back and go, what would I write about? And this idea of orchestrating life, work, harmony came to be because I started seeing how hard it was for these individuals as they're trying to reinvent their whole life. What has to happen? And it's a mindset shift of orchestrating your life differently in order to find harmony, because balance does not work. It's this precarious tightrope we're trying to carry and balance and do it all, right? And it feels like you have to carry it all. You can't. So it's intentional orchestration across all the areas of your life that's going to create success. So I'm going to give you a little bit of a guideline as we wrap up today on how to do that. So I thought I would share my own life. And I'm a data analytics person. I love data. Like I said, I am a technologist, so I'm like, why not put my life on a chart? I'm going to visualize it a little bit. I'm going to go through this quick because we got a lot to get through, and I've got 50 years of my life I've got to get through in the next 20 seconds. I've got my schooling there, kind of going from high school, where I ended up now, and running my agency as well as Tech Moms. Worked at a fast food restaurant called Vittles. And that's where I found my purpose, because sliding around on those greasy floors, arguing with my fellow coworkers on whose burger order was whose, made me realize I cannot live this life. But I came from an environment where we'd grown up on welfare. I did not have financial means to just go, okay, I'm going to enroll in school. But I knew education was my way in. And so I invested my Vittles dollars, every little penny I could get, into my first semester. And I went into architectural engineering to start, but I took my first Pascal programming class. Does anybody even remember that? There's going to be a few in the room, right? There's a few. They're like, yeah, I don't want to date myself too much, but yes. But that was my first going, oh my gosh, I think this computer science thing might be something. It wasn't high tech or tech back then. But that was my foray in. And sometimes when we do these introductions, we introduce ourselves like it's all perfect, right? My life is not perfect. My life is very, very messy. There are a lot of things that happened. Like I was saying, I didn't have money to get into school, so I had to save up. But once I got in and I got my first job, guess what? I ran into these things that nobody prepared me for, like sexism. It is real. I think we need to say the word and be okay with it. It does happen, okay? But I didn't realize what was happening, so I had to kind of fight against some of these biases and things that were coming at me, and how do I get in, and how do I respond to saying, hey Trina, you need to get that job because he needs to provide for his family. How do you deal with that? It kind of was some of those things that come back at you in life, right? Then, going on from there, I'm like, okay, I'll just keep going. I get into school, I get my degrees, I'm doing really good, my career's going, and then I start having a family and my kids, I hit divorce. Just really kind of, that'll disrupt your life pretty quickly. Well, you start working through it again, and you start moving on. You get like all these things happening. I get remarried. I end up having 5 stepkids. So I have 3 sons. I have 5 stepkids. It's like 27 kids. Talk about chaos. It's a little crazy. But I'm like, oh, life's going good. But guess what? Trina, you have breast cancer. Now what? Now I'm facing my mortality. Now I'm trying to figure out what do I do next from here. A little disruptive, right? Well, I survived breast cancer. Yay! And we've been going on, and I'm like, okay, we're gonna launch Tech Moms, I'm gonna launch my agency. Those are not easy things to do, to found companies. It's a real challenge. Life happens. There is a lot of life happening out there, whether it's the sub pump, it's like something happens, right? There is always things going on. Work does not stop for life. You have to be able to recognize we have lives going on while we're working, so how do we now orchestrate across those? So hopefully sharing my personal journeys, giving you I know that there's some incredible stories out in this room of things that have had to be really resilient and moving through and orchestrating across all aspects of our life. So we're going to have a little bit of an interactive day. We have probably 30 minutes here left. In fact, let me hit the QR code. That's going to be easier. If you hit this QR code and you want to join in, it's going to let you kind of follow on. We're going to do some live polling about what is orchestrating life harmony for you? What is it going to take? And it's kind of fun to do this with everybody, because then you go, oh wait, I'm not alone. It's not just me that's going through this. Everybody's going through their own challenges when it comes to life harmony. So, first question, once you get in there, what I want you to do, just to test this out, use an emoji, because everybody loves emojis, right? And everybody loves Disney. That's why I used my AI to create anime characters for today's. That's my assumption, right or wrong. It's funner anyway. So use an emoji to show how you would feel when I say the word balance. Let's see what everybody says. We get some happy faces. Somebody out there likes to balance. Who is it? This guy right here. All right, so you like the tightrope, walking, carrying it. Love it. Do it all. Take it all. Let's do it all at the same time, because I have so much time and energy. I can't get rid of it all. I think the one thing to realize that is the evener for everyone is, guess what? We only have 24 hours in a day. Nobody has more or less. That's the one equality thing that we all have the same amount of time. How are we going to use it? But this is kind of fun, right? Somebody's crying, like, I don't know how to do it all, I can't take it all on. Some of us don't have as much as others, that's fine too. We're all coming from a different place, right? Somebody likes to play basketball, but we've got somebody that's having peace signs, somebody's hiding a little bit, right? We're all kind of have this feeling of how can I balance it all? Very good. All right, Slido is working. So what we're going to be talking about is how to put your life first. Let's give you some real actions. If anybody's having that feeling, other than our gentleman up here, do we do this? And I call it the life first model. You get to put your life first. How many are having some reactionary feelings about me saying that? Right here. It feels wrong? You like it? Uh-huh. Yeah. So having to focus on your life, being able to take time if you're having health issues, like you were saying, I'm taking time from recovering. I have to focus on myself for a while. That's okay. Centering on yourself is not self-centered. It's critical. Because everything else in our life comes about because we are intentionally focused on ourselves and what is best for what we see we want to bloom in what I call our life garden. When I wrote the book, I really had started out with, it was called Orchestrating Work-Life Harmony. And I went to speak at Overstock. This is back in 2022. They're now Bed Bath & Beyond. And I had a few minutes. We were still in the post-COVID recovery, so we were doing a virtual global conference. And I had a few minutes with Jonathan Johnson, at the time was the CEO. And we were having this conversation about work-life balance and this shift to harmony. And he said, you know what? My teams in Ireland came to me one day and they said, we don't like this whole work-life balance, not because of the balance. We don't like that you put work first. So I changed the balance. I changed my book title to Life, Work, Harmony. That is intentional. It is putting your life first is what creates the success. Now, I'm not saying be selfish. I'm saying you're going to be intentional about what's important in your life, spending some time to be clear on that and understanding what's important for you. Because guess what? Then your conversations with your spouse or your family or your kids get a lot better because you're very clear on what's most important to you. And how can they support that? How can you support them and what's important to what for them, right? The conversations get a lot more clear when you do this work. So let's ask another poll. What does life first mean to you? Let's take a couple moments here. There's some really great ones here. I think some of these were pulled from my prior one, but making things that bring me joy a priority, prioritizing what's important as it's happening, being present, right? You are human first, then employee, mom, dad, friend. Human first. I love that. Does anybody feel a little bit more at peace going, oh, it's okay for me to sit down and spend a few minutes thinking about what's important to me now. And spending the time and prioritizing that time. So live a way that makes you happy. And finding time for that. We're going to talk about what I call the Lawns model on how do we find that time. Health, achieving my goals, want to be happy, do more of what makes you happy. Do we all understand what that is? There's times where I've had conversations with people and I'll be like, what's your hobbies? And they just look at me blankly. They don't have any. And I ask them why, and they say, well, because I've got to do this for my kids, and I've got to do this for somebody else. And they lose themselves in the sacrifice to everyone else. That is the perfect way to find disharmony, is to be in constant sacrifice to everyone else, and we don't find time for ourselves. We're giving too much to our work, too much to all these different areas. So we're going to walk through this model. How do we now center in a way that is positive, not just for you, but everybody around you? So I call it putting yourself in timeout. You ever had a naughty kid and they're just going crazy and you're just like, you just need to go to timeout? Because they're way disharmony. They're causing disharmony for everyone, right? You need to put yourself in timeout. But you need to be intentional and aware of when you need to. If you're feeling disharmony, don't just keep reacting to the disharmony and staying in it. You need to take a step back and focus and recenter on you. I call them tune-in moments. You gotta re-tune in, because you're like I do all the time. I'm yelling at my kids all the time. What is going on? Something is off in me. Maybe I had too much caffeine. Maybe I shouldn't be doing a keto, low-carb diet right now. I don't know what it is, but I need to step back and figure it out, because it's not fair to everybody around me that I'm acting like this. Sometimes just going, okay, I'm depressed, I'm not feeling well, I physically am having issues, whatever it might be, those are great indicators that you need to tune in to yourself and take a time out. Put yourself in time out. Because you're the naughty kid sometimes. So, how many growing up have ever heard of the Lawns model? How do you grow a plant? What does a plant need in order to grow? It's on the slide if you can. Just saying.
Water.
Water.
Sunlight.
Sunlight. Air, soil,
Nurturing.
nurturing. Those are the five, there's 5 things we need in order to grow a plant. When I'm talking about your life garden, and you're centering yourself in the middle of your life's garden, what are the things that you need in order to be successful in growing your life? And you're going to be starting to architect your own life garden as we go through this and as you go through this process. Light of great relationships. Relationships can be the joy or the darkness. Anybody ever had a toxic relationship or friendship with someone? It could be a family member of any kind. You know those toxic people, they drain you, right? And it feels like just this dark, like anytime you're like, oh, you walk away just drained. But great relationships and great friendships bring light to your life. You then have air. You can breathe the air of financial wellness. When you get yourself into a place of safety and understanding and control of your finances, it's like breathing fresh air, right? It's like, okay, I don't have to worry about that. It's not bringing that heaviness into my life all the time if I'm constantly struggling financially. All of these things are going to tie together when we talk about orchestrating across all of these, because then your work life is what you're going to nurture in order to be able to drive your financial wellness, right? They tie together. So what am I doing? Attending a conference to upskill and understand how I can improve my career, my skill sets, and sharpen the saw, as Cubby would say, right? How do I do that? Because then that leads to future financial wealth, helps me build my relationships and take care of my family and my friends, and it creates a sense of peace. I'm going to skip nutrition for a moment and go to space. Creating space for yourself. Do you find time for you? Sometimes you can find too much time for you and then you're gone to the other side of it, but it's orchestrating the right amount of time for the things that you want to do that are most important. We were having a conversation at lunch about all the wonderful things here to do in Utah. Hiking, mountain biking, I dirt bike, I love to golf, I love to do all these things, but there's only so much time, going back to only 24 hours in a day. I could probably fit in maybe 3 of those things in a day, but you can't do them all, right? So you have to be selective and prioritizing all the time on what's most important for your own personal development. Is it picking up new art forms or learning music or all these different things of like, how do we develop ourselves personally as well? But as you look at your garden, right? My mic keeps cutting out a little bit, sorry about that. If you're looking at your life garden, I would look at it as those 4 spaces, but underneath your garden, what does it take to grow? I call it the fertile soil of mental health and wellness. Nothing in your garden, is that working? I think it just cuts out a little bit. Maybe I'll hold still a little bit. Nothing in your garden is going to grow unless you're coming from a place of mental health and wellness. I'll just grab the hand mic, maybe. Yeah, it was going strong there for a moment. Pull this through. Maybe caught on it. Time out. Is that better? Yeah, that's working. Okay. So, how many of you have ever felt fear, doubt, shame, or guilt? If I didn't see you raise your hand, you're lying. We all do it, right? I really have a hard time when people talk about imposter syndrome. I'm like, everybody experiences doubt. We all do it, right? But it's how well you can control and understand and be intentional about overcoming those things. Really focusing on your mental health and wellness is going to make sure you want to do that first before anything else in order to have everything grow. And so that's the Lawns model of making sure you have all of these things. So it's an easy way to be able to sit down and hit each one of those. If you're feeling disharmony, sit down and look at each one of those aspects of your life. Where is the disharmony coming from? It might be one major area, it might be a relationship, it might be bad finances, it might be mental health. all of those things, we need to just step back in those tune-on moments and sit down and go, which of these do I need to be focused on? Okay? All right, so you are now at the center of your garden, and you're going to start doing this on a regular basis. You're going to be looking at, how are my relationships going? How am I doing in my finances? How am my personal well-being, my health, right? Taking time for those on a regular basis is just a very quick and easy model. The way I will often do it is just, and in my book it outlines it, you just drop X or lines across and just hit the 4 really quickly, and you can go, it just is a way of mentally focusing and saying, being intentional, where do I need to put some work in? Where might I need to have some adjustments or have a conversation? Sometimes this is coming from work, and being able to relook at those. So around your garden now, you have fence lines. Anybody ever heard of boundary work? Same thing, okay? You've got fences you need to put up around your life, because I call them goats. And I'm going to tell a little story about my friend here. This is Casper, the unfriendly goat. And growing up, I actually did have a goat named Casper, the unfriendly goat. I'm not making this up. It's modeled off my relationship with Casper. So growing up, I used to take my little brother Mike, and I'd put him in a wagon behind Casper, and I would stick him in the wagon, and I would tie the wagon to Casper, and then slap Casper and see how long it was before Casper would run, before my brother would fall out of the wagon. And I had this little notebook, and I would log how long, and then I'd do it again. I'd line up Casper and my brother, and I'd hit it and see, and I'd measure. So this is like my early days of Six Sigma, and outliers and probabilities. I did this like when I was 7 years old. I started to measure how fast, how far could you go? And so I learned a lot about goats. And goats, my mom would have these chore lists for us. At the very top of the list would always be, shut the gates and keep the goats out of the garden. Because if the goats got into our garden, they would eat everything, including my brother's boots, tin cans, you name it, everything would be wasted. And we have to protect our gardens from the goats. Not the greatest of all time, that is a thing. I'm talking about those really pesky, ornery goats that get into our gardens and just consume everything. We all have them. It might be ourselves, whether we're saving enough or letting little things slide in our budgets. It may be that person. It may be something that's just consuming our time. It might be not able to say no at work, right? That's just consuming all of our time. We all have goats. And so we have to be able to protect them. And what I would say that's really important is we're going to be talking about vision a little bit. If you don't know what you're going to say yes to, how do you know what to say no to? You're just kind of oh, right, okay, I think. The same thing goes for work or at home. You need to show, results-focused leadership, right? I think most everybody's heard about this. What are our goals? What are our targets? What should I be focused on? Because you can't do it all. Let's get very clear with your leadership teams and for yourself. What are your results you need to be focused on so you can say no? Same thing at home. What are the things that are most important that we need to be able to do? Okay, we know what yes is, so everything else is a no. Or it may be a not now. So let's take a little bit of a quiz again. Join in there. This again is just to give you, for those that, some prior data. Work, top of the list is set boundaries. Why do you think that is? It's your pay, it's your livelihood, right? It's hard when you're in the workplace to be able to say, no, I'm not going to do that. So the conversation can now pivot to, like I said before, results focus. What is most important? Let me ask that question before I say yes. Now, here's all the things I'm working on. Okay, here's what we can do, come to an alignment. It's not always a straight yes or no, but like I said, sometimes it's like I can't do that now, but I can do it by this date. But being able to have those conversations clearly is very important. All right, looks like we're getting them in. It's kind of the same, look at that. Not shifting too much. Work, relationships, finances, then self-development. Very cool. All right, so let's talk about this orchestration that we need to do between all of these different things. How easy is it to do this? Except for this guy right here. It sometimes is really hard, right? So it's being very clear. So we're going to talk next on how to do all of these different orchestrations. The first is sit down every day or week or on a monthly. Just make this a habit. Make it like part of your thinking. Okay, and you can do it really quickly. You don't even have to sit down and write. You can just go, okay, I'm feeling stressed. What is it? Is it my relationships, my finances, my work, or my personal development, or do I need to look at my mental health? Pretty quick, right? And you start to get into this habit. So make it a priority. So I want to share a little bit on vision. A few years ago when I went through cancer, it makes you stop and really think about what's most important in your life. And for me, I started hitting, once I got the clean bill of health and I was like, okay, I'm good, you start going through and prioritizing what's most important. And I had always wanted to go to Harvard. It was like top of the list for me. I wanted to go, it's just because I hadn't been able to afford to go to school and I had to like really struggle through it. I was like, I want to go to Harvard. So I went back to Harvard and did business strategy. And in a business, you have to have a very clear vision and mission statement, right? Very clear. And we were at dinner after, and I was meeting with one of my colleagues, and we were having this conversation about vision and mission statements, and we were saying, you know, our lives need a vision and mission statement. And we were talking about this, and I said, you know, sometimes now, like after having gone through this whole, what do I want my life to look like, when I get to the end of it, is it going to be like, oh, here's Trina, she had a really great big bank account, which I would like to have. I'm not saying discount that. But is that what I want people to say? Is that what's most important to me? Is that the vision I want for my life? Is that I've had this great corporate career? Or do I want to make an impact? And I started thinking about my life like an impact heat map. And I want to have, I don't want it to be all red, because those are people I've pissed off and ticked off and upset. Or is it yellow where it's like, not my problem. I really don't care. That's just as bad in my mind. The third is what I call Trina Power Blue. And I want a whole heat map of impact. I want to be able to see how many people can I impact and how broad could be my impact. And that has really driven me. That's why I was able to lead an excellent corporate career, and I sometimes have to go, Trina, are you okay? You left a lot of money, right? To go found a nonprofit. But every time I hear the stories, even walking in here today, is Denise still here? Everywhere I walk in, the last two conferences I've been to, there's a tech mom there that says, thank you, Trina, for doing what you're doing. You changed my life. That's meaningful. And so for me, getting to that vision was critical. And I had to go through cancer to get there. So let's sit down. I'm not sure how many people have a clear life vision. Yes? No? Or I can't see beyond dinner tonight, let alone thinking about the rest of my life. We might have some of those too. I'm not sure how hungry everybody is, and I know they've got a great dinner or event planned this evening as well, right? So really thinking about what is the vision for your life. If you don't have one, let's go through the work to figure out what it is. sitting down and going, the best way to do this I found is to step back and really think about, what do I want in my life? What do I want people to say about me? It sounds morbid, but it's not, right? It's looking back on, what type of life do I want to experience? What do I want to create? What do I want that to feel like? Always start all of this. This is one thing that I found. How do I want it to feel? How do I want people to feel about me? Tie it into the emotion, it becomes much more impactful. All right. Looks like it's a pretty even split there, other than the dinner people. All right. We've talked a little bit about fertilizing the soil there. So, purpose. This is a really fun activity, and then we're going to be wrapping it up pretty quickly here. Purpose. You got your vision and your mission. One of the funnest things that I've done, and I want you to think about this, is when I, all the way from elementary school to high school to college students to even executives. I was down speaking at Reef Capital down at Black Desert, and it's all like highly super successful executives, right, that are there, like massive rogue executives. And I said, I want you to think about the toys you played with when you were growing up. What were your favorite toys? For me, I loved Barbie dolls and erector sets. And I used to build motorized cars and boats for my Barbies. I think they were like the first official like Barbie ATVs. I should have marketed it and sold them, honestly. So I would drive my Barbies around the foothills up in northern Cache Valley, the mountain. I lived in the mountains up northern Utah. And so I'd take my Barbies out, because I can tell you my Barbies would get really bored dressing up and sitting around a Barbie house. And I'm like, we gotta get out of here. So I would build them cars and we'd go out in the mountains. Those were my toys. I loved fashion and I loved engineering. It was just in me. And when you look at the things you like to play with growing up, it's a pretty good indicator of what your purpose is. What excites you? What gives you joy? What's that thing that's gonna just get you out of bed in the morning? And I did this event, and afterward, it was incredible how many people came up and told me and were so excited about telling me what toys they played with, right? All these adult people are like, okay, this is really fun. One of them was an engineer that had built an autonomous mower for golf courses. They mow the fairways. And he's like, I used to rig my room so that it would have it was like Inspector Gadget type stuff. Like you'd walk in, you flip on the light, you get squirted in the face by like a squirt bottle or something. He would have like an auto open his blinds in the morning when his alarm went off. Like no wonder he's an engineer, right? So those things in your mind, we probably don't have time, but maybe after in the QA, we'll probably have to hear a few of your stories about what gets you excited, kind of think about those things. Like what were you gravitated to in high school? What type of clubs do you participate in? If you really are struggling with that, you can kind of look back on where did you find the most joy. That's a good indicator of your future purpose and where you need to be focused. All right, so I only have one on here responded, but if you want to share your life purpose, go ahead, because I would love to see it. Like what you think your life purpose might be, or is. Maybe some of you are living it. Anybody want to share?
Well, since I have a life balance, I'll share.
Yeah, since you got it all figured out here, let's hear
Should
it.
I get my mic?
Yeah.
So, I believe I have life, is it on?
Yeah.
I believe I have life balance. It doesn't mean that everything's always in sync. It certainly isn't.
No.
But back to high school, grade 12, computers were brand new. I changed my focus from being a doctor to being in tech. I loved every minute of it. And today, I think part of the problem in the life balance is I don't think I've ever worked. I have a hobby that just happens to make me a lot of money.
Yeah.
I have a company, but it's what I do, it's what I love.
Yeah.
So I might work, and as Paul can see, I sleep 4 hours a day, so I probably have more time in my day than a lot of other people
Yeah.
do. And I just love everything about
So
it.
you do have 32 hours in your day.
Just about. So, yeah, so my life purpose is, my company isn't necessarily to make money, it might be a final result of it.
Yeah.
But I just always help. I do technology to help improve companies and processes. I'm on boards, I'm on my local mud district to board of director for our communities, I'm on
And that
HOA
giving
boards.
back,
I
yeah.
just always am helping and trying to improve something, hoping that it's better for somebody else. Sometimes I realize that I'm doing too much.
Yeah.
But I just accept that as part of what I do.
Yeah.
So.
And you can pull back. So if you recognize it, you're like,
Not always, not
Yeah.
always, but it's just part of what I accept as
you
what I
push
am.
through it and it's
Yeah.
acceptable for that because you know
Yeah.
it'll come back down and you'll get back into,
Absolutely.
yeah.
So I know it's stressful at times, but that's just what I've accepted and I enjoy it. I love the stress. It
Wonderful.
might not be a good thing, but I love it.
Yeah. If it's enjoyable, but I think the key there is that you enjoy it. You found something that doesn't feel like work.
Yeah, it is
Right.
not work. It
Yeah.
is not work.
Lovely, thank you for sharing. All right, so now, this is what I was talking about. Learn now to start controlling the gates, start putting up those fence lines, being able to protect your garden, and identifying your garden invaders. One last thing I want to talk about before I wrap up is these goats that are gonna get in. We're not gonna have time to do the survey. If we wanna come back to it, we can. But think about like, what are the number of goats you might have in? A lot of us might have goat bosses, goat coworkers, I mean, they come from everywhere. So just start to look at where those things are and think about what can you control, what can you do? How can you then maybe let some of that go and be like, I'm just not going to interact in a way that's gonna be harmful to me. I've had jobs before, I'm like, you know what, it's time to go. I've got a go boss that's just not gonna get it, that's okay, why keep trying to make it work when it's not going to? And then sometimes we have great ones, I'm not saying it's always great, so you're gonna find that you have both goats and what I call gardeners. And what you want to do is find the gardeners that help you bloom and keep out the goats that consume. That's my little mantra. You want to get the gardeners and keep out the goats, okay? And you're going to want to start plucking. I call it pluck it and chuck it. If you have those fears, those doubts, the shame, the guilt, those are destroyers. So you're going to do what I call pluck it and chuck it. If you have a negative thought, recognize it. Don't just ruminate on it. Don't let it ruin your thought processes and keep having a tape recording of this negative thought. Stop, tune in, recognize it's negative, and you're gonna pluck it and chuck it. You're gonna either do that or you're gonna flip it into a positive. That's a great way of reaffirming a positive rather than negative. Whatever that negative is, I can't do something, you know what, I can. Or I won't. It's a choice now. So really be careful on what your thoughts are. And so look at those gardeners, and this is just kind of, I'm going to skip over because I know this is the last thing I want to talk about. We have pests in our garden. Some of us have more pests than others. I want you to be aware of that. You might be one that has no pests in your garden, and when I talk about pests, it might be, like I was saying, sexism, intolerance, racism. There's things that individuals might have to deal with that you don't have to. Just be aware of that. That sometimes you don't want to be the goat that's spreading those things either, right? So just know that there are different forms of harmony that people are trying to work through that might be different than yours. And understand that they need to do something or they need help with that. Be one of those that are a gardener that help people with that. Speak up on their behalf. Be able to say something. As somebody that's had to deal with that, I've learned rather than getting a thicker skin, I've had to get a stronger voice. I've been able to say, get past that fear of the retaliation or the anger because I said something and just say it anyway. And so sometimes that might offend people. Sometimes it may not. And I am just grateful that I'm in a room that allows me to say what I want to say with openness, because I'm just trying to share perspectives here. This is not judgment zone. This is just awareness of what our lives in harmony and trying to create harmony for others in their gardens as well, being that gardener. So with that, I'm just gonna close out before we go to questions on just understanding as you're orchestrating your life, you're gonna be going along and something's gonna happen, like your sump pump's gonna go out in your house and you're dealing with that remotely and you're not there and you're guiding somebody through it and you're taking a pause. And we're saying, okay, I gotta deal with this life thing right now. Okay, now things can keep going on. Learning the process of learning to pause and redirect. And it's just a continual process that you're gonna go through your whole life, just orchestrating across. So with that, I'm gonna end here. I'm grateful for this time today. Thank you to Gwen and the whole cast conference for having me. It's been a joy. I've really enjoyed today. If you're here, I've got books at the back that we're going to be selling as well, and I have an online program if you go to trinaceleste.com. If you want to get involved with Tech Moms, please also get a hold of us. We have a lot of ways to get involved. We're making a massive impact, and we need everybody's help with what we're doing there, so appreciate the time today. Thank you.
Do we have questions? Let's see. I think this mic should be on.
Right over here, it's Douglas.
Oh, yes, okay.
Yeah, I was gonna say, he was not there. Oh, we got it? Oh.
Hold up those green cards. Okay, we'll start with Matt Thornell.
Test. Cool. I loved your presentation. First and
Thank you.
foremost. One of the things that I have learned this past year is not just to value yourself, value your time, and build those boundaries, but also to give yourself permission.
Yeah, that's word permission.
Yeah, permission to relax, permission to do better, permission to be okay failing and learning the next time that you go through it. And I wanted to ask you, what have you given yourself permission to do to overcome challenges that you personally have gone through?
I'm not crying.
Will you repeat the question for me?
All choked up, we're not.
Maybe I will cry. Let me share a personal story. The question was, what have you given yourself permission to do, right, in life? Because sometimes it's hard to say, I'm gonna allow myself to do that and work through, sorry. Oh, Gwen, you're so sweet. One of the things that I went through, when I talk about mental health and wellness, I'm very serious about that. So my son went through a period of suicidal ideation. And I woke up to my son telling me, hey, your dad's on the phone, Bridger's in the hospital, my son. And I said, no, he's asleep downstairs. And he said, no, he's in the hospital. I got on the phone and he said, Bridger checked himself he called the 1-800 suicide hotline and checked himself in the hospital. And it was a really traumatic experience for our whole family to go through. And, a lot of time and process to be able to work through that. And what I didn't realize is in me trying to take care of him and everybody else, making sure everybody else was okay, I lost myself in that process. And I would wake up every morning and I would run down the stairs and knock on the door to make sure he was still alive. I did it every day for months. And I finally had to give myself permission to go get help. And I went to counseling, and I went through this process called EMDR. I don't know if anybody's heard of that. It's like there's some in the room. It's eye movement that helps you release these anxieties and fears and tensions and, life traumas. I basically gone through PTSD, right? And what I found as I worked through that, she said, you know, how would it feel to not have that fear? And I'm like, I can't let that fear go, because if I let the fear go, somehow he's gonna die. That's what it felt like for me. And working through that process, I had to give myself permission to let it go. To say, you know what, I'm going to be there, I'm going to support as much as I can, but I had to set boundaries, and I had conversations with my son on, here's how much I can hear about what you're going through, because it was causing trauma for me to hear about his, really harsh thoughts, right, about taking his life. And so that was one of the biggest things I've ever had to do, and I appreciate you letting me share that story, because it's one that I've found as I've done this work, there's always somebody that's going through that. And allowing ourselves to understand it's not always about, it's about finding the harmony between all of that in the midst of the chaos and the hurt and the pain and the healing that can happen through that. So thank you for that question.
Thank you for your answer.
Yeah, absolutely. Any others? I stunned everyone.
Well, thank you, Trina.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
The recording has stopped.
You guys, let's give Trina another round of applause. Something not lighter, I don't think, just a little different.
Different.
Yeah,
Yes.
different. Equally, if not more important, I think. And certainly part of quality. All right. Do we have a few more minutes? Can I take a few more minutes of your time? A couple things. First off, we're at day 2 of day 3. What do you guys think? Good. Are you open to, so, we've gone through a few years of a lot of churn. I think COVID threw us a loop. AST is kind of on